في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح. أصل المسيح هو الحياة، هو الطريق 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 الطريق
Welcome to The Way TV. Yes, I do indeed held in my left hand. It's the only thing I ever do by the left. Everything else I do is right, for those who know me. In my left hand, I have my copy of the Quran, and I will read to you the words that Sergeant Bergdahl, our first clip, when we play in a few seconds, translated into English what Sergeant Bergdahl's father said, Bo Bergdahl's dad said, "In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful." That's what he said. Basically, he is stating that he's a converted Muslim, and from everything that I know, with a lot of inside information, I've known about Bo Bergdahl for years. My son's active duty Army, I know all about Sergeant Bergdahl for years. I got all proof, the evidence, and facts at the highest level. All the generals who are all crying that he's innocent until proven guilty, nobody has said anything otherwise. We have all said we want a trial, we demand a trial. Under the privileges and immunities of an American citizen, he is permitted a trial. I hope he gets it. And of course, I hope they don't squash through political correctness the proof, the evidence, and facts. The first 7 verses of chapter 1 of the Quran in English, the very first line is exactly what Bo Bergdahl's dad said. "In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful," proving that he's a Muslim, converted Muslim. "Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray." Now, this is directly from the Quran, and this is the de jure understanding of Islam. De jure meaning how they talk about the 5 pillars of Islam. You have to go on the Hajj, you have to do alms. But the de facto, the true essence of Islam is very simple. In accordance with Occam's razor, the famous philosopher who pointed out, I believe in the 13th century, that we take the complex and we reduce it to simplest terms. In working with fractions, we get the common denominator. We reduce to simplest terms by having a common denominator. In what I did in the Marine Corps in battle planning, we reduce from the complex to the simplest terms. In a lawsuit, we take the complex, and a good attorney reduces to simplest terms and puts it into the language that the jury can comprehend. In Islam, simply put, if you want to understand Islam, all you have to know is one thing times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. The true de facto, in fact, 5 pillars of Islam is what did Muhammad do, what did Muhammad do, what did Muhammad do, what did Muhammad do, what did Muhammad do. Now, before we get to Bo Bergdahl's dad admitting that he's a converted Muslim, and in my opinion, actively aiding and abetting the Taliban, our sworn enemies all over the world, we have what did Muhammad do in the UK. I don't think you can see this very well. This is a lady police chief in a city in the UK, and she's admitting that the Muslim sex rings, kidnapping, raping, grooming the little girls with drugs, with liquor, and with money, and then raping the girls is out of control. this is truly the 5 pillars of what did Muhammad do. This is truly it, because Muhammad had sex with a 6-year-old girl, and he had sex with a dead woman in an open grave. We have all the proof, evidence, and facts of that. In fact, I have them everywhere I go, in Arabic, in English. I carry them with me. I use them all the time because I believe we're in big trouble with Islam. The police chief of Thames Valley Police Chief Constable Sarah Thornton claims, she said officers identified networks of vile perverts operating between different cities and towns as part of Operation Bullfinch. Well, these perverts are Muslims, and they're merely doing what did Muhammad do. So again, if Sharia Islamic law takes over in the UK, which eventually it will in 20 to 30 years, they're at about 4% of the English overall population's MPH, Muslims per host. When they reach 10% of whatever the total English population is, then 100% of the Muslims will join together. There will be no bifurcation, a false bifurcation of moderate and extremist Muslims. They will all work together, launch against the people of England to replace Magna Carta and the treasured heritage of Anglo common law. That will be thrown out, and in its stead you will have these roving gangs of vile perverts. She doesn't call them Muslims, but everybody who is studying this, and we've shown clip after clip after clip here on the show, all understand that these are Muslim men doing what Muhammad did. Child sex slaves are being sold to pedophiles all over the country, the police chief claimed just a few days ago. Thames Valley Police Chief Constable Sarah Thornton said officers identified networks. Now, these networks are not just isolated to grooming little girls into having sex with older men through drugging them, getting them drunk, and plying them with money. These are terrorist cells. These are terrorist networks of the people who do what Muhammad did. Now, we have, again, all the proof, evidence, and facts on this stuff. When we go to Dish TV and eventually DirecTV, I'm so excited we'll be able to reach millions of Americans who will be channel surfing and whatnot, and then they will come across the clips that we show on this program all the time to wake up America. It's interesting to me. It takes about 2 to 6 months for people to get used to seeing these things. They're so vile, as the police chief here says. They're vile perverts. Muhammad had sex with a 6-year-old girl. That is a vile pervert. Muhammad jumped into an open grave and copulated with a dead woman. That is a vile pervert. The suicide bombers are vile perverts, murdering innocent people in the fashion that they do. These are vile perverts. But this is exactly what did Muhammad do. The 5 true pillars, what did Muhammad do? What did Jesus do? What did Muhammad do? What did Jesus do? If you listen to college professors and the politically correct, they will lie to you. They will overwhelm you with complex silliness. They will read the first 5 chapters of the Quran that all says, we love you and all that. But the balance up to chapters 114 or 115, depending if you're Sunni or Shiite, are all about murdering, killing, especially the Jews and the Christians, of kidnapping little girls, of raping women after Muhammad murdered, beheaded the husband. He raped her, called it marriage, but it was rape just a few feet from the dead body. So all of this stuff, the stuff that's happening with Bo Bergdahl, the stuff that's happening with Islam, the Boko Haram stealing the girls, all of this stuff with Islam globally, all over the world, has been triggered by thoughtful, loving people who have been exposing by merely showing the actions of the Muslims themselves. Why should I talk about it? I intersperse it with showing the clips. These clips are going to be on YouTube. All 1-hour long shows will be loaded up into YouTube. I thought we'd have it done by this week, but hopefully by tomorrow or Monday we will have it done. And we will merely show, what do the Muslims do? Well, it's simple. They look to, what did Muhammad do? Again, repeating, because these are child sex slaves are being sold to pedophiles all over the country. England. A police chief claimed today these sex slave networks, these vile perverts, are from one common place, the mosque, Islam. What did Muhammad do? They're in America, they're in Canada, they're in other parts of Western Europe already too. The best way to learn about Islam is let the Muslims teach you. That's why after they blew up the World Trade Centers, immediately I went to the mosques with translators to talk directly to these people. I wanted to know, what was their sine qua non? What made them tick? What was their DNA in their brain? I wanted to know. I know. And so I'm doing this show. Even though I have multiple death threats against me. And what's really funny to me, though, is that if you hold your ground, if you don't back up, the Muslims will not bother you. By nature, they're cowards. They're afraid. And I know I have a lot of Muslims watching, especially the Ikhwan Muslimin. I know they're watching. Hey, they know all about me. They write about me in the newspaper. C'est la guerre. Don't really care. Thames Valley Police Chief Constable Sarah Thornton said officers identified networks of vile perverts, Muslims, operating between different cities and towns as part of Operation Bullfinch, a probe by her force that netted 7 men from Oxford alone who abused, trafficked, and sold vulnerable girls as young as 11. That's Islam. That is Sharia law. That is Islamic law. In Egypt, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Syria, in Iran, this is not against the law. This is exactly why the people of this station and the refugees from Egypt, from Pakistan, from Iran, from Iraq, from Syria have all come over here. They're sick and tired of their girls being kidnapped at 11 years old or younger, and genital mutilation, clitorectomy, raping them, destroying them, and throwing them back out on the street when the thugs, the vile perverts, in her word, Muslims, get rid of them. The police chief said, we know from some of the Bullfinch evidence they were taking girls to Birmingham and London, so we know there are links. Dude, I've been saying this for the day after they blew up the World Trade Center. My background's a Marine Corps officer in Vietnam. I am a specialist in cell or guerrilla warfare. I understand how they link together. I understand all this. What we don't know is the nature of those links. Come on, lady, you're killing me. Killing me! Why are you doing this? What we don't know is the nature of those links. It's simple. It's all based on follow the mosque, follow the Muslim, and you will follow the vile pervert to the 11-year-old girls. Come on, lady, you're supposed to be a professional law officer. You don't know? No, she's afraid of losing her job because if she admits that the common thread is they're Muslims, Islam, doing what Muhammad did, she will lose her job. Bullfinch chief investigator Simon Morton also warned, if it happens in Oxford, I can't imagine a city it wouldn't happen in. Come on. No mention of Islam. No mention of Muslim. No mention of Sharia law. No mention of Islamic law. No mention of what did Muhammad do. This is the best and the brightest. This is the same attitude that we have in Iraq and Afghanistan, which both constitutions are based on Sharia, Islamic law, which has never permitted a First Amendment and has never permitted majority rules with minority rights. All right, I'm shutting up. I've talked too long. Now we're going to hear in Arabic, Mr. Bergdahl, I feel sorry for the man. His kid walked away from his post, deserted, actively aided and abetted the enemies of America, and put his friends, his men, his buddies, his pal into deep jeopardy. In World War II, he would be taken to a tribunal. He would get due process in accordance with the laws of the land, the Uniform Code of Military Justice written in accordance with the Constitution of the United States. In times of war, we have a reduction of the Bill of Rights on the front battlefield. Of course, non habet legem, Latin meaning self-defense knows no law. But when this sergeant, a 3-striped sergeant, left his post, then he declared war on his own men. Benedict Arnold was a hero, a great man. He did many, many things very good. He was a hero in the Revolutionary War. I believe he was the hero of Ticonderoga. I could be wrong. But he was huge. He was completely trusted, especially by George Washington. Judas Iscariot, same thing, was trusted by the apostles. But there comes a time when you have to exercise due diligence and judgment. Yes, yes indeed. Judge not, lest ye be judged. For by what standard you are judged, so shall ye be judged. In this case, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, let justice be met out. In World War II, he would be hung. Now, he'll probably get off. I feel sorry for the mother and the father to convert to Islam. I feel sorry for anybody. That's like a black person converting to Islam. It's like a black person during the Civil War converting to slavery. It's Islam, by its nature, is slavery. Okay, clip number one. Clip number one.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported Bo. He's had a wonderful team everywhere. We will continue to stay strong for Bo while he recovers. Thank you.
I'd like to say to Bo right now, who's having trouble speaking English, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Zayabayem. I'm your father, Bo. The people of Afghanistan, the same. Khalifa al-Thani, the complicated nature of this recovery will never really be comprehended. To each and every.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. He's a traitor. It is so easy to prove. It is so easy to prove that the Constitution of the United States is definitely based on the Ten Commandments. In fact, I have right here moral leadership. You can't read it. I know, I understand, but I have it and another original copy. The protection of moral standards and character education program. Here's what the CNO in charge of the Pentagon wrote. America's most important role in the world, almost from the day our country was born, has been the role of moral leadership. Teach our young people to believe in the responsibility of one to another, their responsibility to God, meaning the triune God of the Christians, to the peoples of the world. Teach them to believe in themselves, to believe in their worth as human beings, to believe in their place in leading the world out of the darkness of oppression. The Taliban is the darkness of oppression. Al-Qaeda is the darkness of oppression. Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan Muslimin, in charge of almost 100% of the mosque in the United States, is the darkness of oppression. The Muslim Brotherhood in all the major mosques in the United States, every state, all 50 states in the United States, all believe in what did Mohammed do. They believe in these vile perverts that we started off with. They believe in sex with 6-year-old girls. And younger than that, we've showed the clips of Ayatollah Khomeini, who was one of the top jurists while he was alive. Ayatollah Khomeini, the Little Green Book, one of the top jurists in the Ummah, the body of Islamic believers in the world. And he believed in all this stuff. In fact, on page 70 of his book, the Little Green Book, he says in grammar school, it doesn't matter if it's kindergarten or 6th grade, in grammar school, if a boy and a girl want to have sex, they can have a temporary marriage, and they don't have to tell their parents. This is what did Muhammad do. For all of the so-called intellectual, enlightened, politically correct philosophers who think multiculturalism, that Islam is the same as Christianity, just look at the sexual perversion of Muhammad. And by the way, it's not just 72 virgins, it is 28 little boys too. We're going to show some stuff about that too. Teach them the military. Teach the military to believe that no one owes us a living, but that we owe so much to others. Teach them to believe in their priceless heritage of freedom, and that is must be won anew by every generation. And teach them to believe in the United States of America. The hope of the world lies here, in our physical power, our moral strength, our integrity, and our will to assume the responsibilities that history has plainly intended us to bear. It is amazing. This is from the Pentagon, approved by the Supreme Court, at the command of President Eisenhower, approved by the Pentagon, published in 1957. When I was in Vietnam, this was read to me. I remember this before I was allowed to go out and engage and kill the enemy. This was read to me. Moral law, often called natural law, does not change. It is in the very nature of things. It is written in the hearts of all men everywhere. It is the same law, saying the same thing to everyone at all times, all over the world. Human law and social customs must conform to it, or they are wrong and invalid, meaning Sharia or Islamic law. Neither personal opinion nor circumstances can change it. It binds on both sides of the international date line. The basic teaching of the natural moral law is do good and avoid evil. The codified form of the natural moral law is the 10 Commandments. This is the law on which the Constitution of the United States is built and on which it safeguards and expresses the constitutional tradition of America is a moral heritage. And to the protection of this heritage, the military officer binds himself. The men, military officers and enlisted, when we go out at this time, it was to protect the 10 Commandments. I just read it. I can't wait until I go on Dish Network and Americans can see the clips and hear and see the truth, facts, evidence, and proof. I've been in federal court 11 times, sued 11 times, lost once on First Amendment issues. I understand everything, facts, evidence, and proof. All right, Adam, are you awake? Okay, Allah Akbar. Clip number 2. Go ahead, clip number 2.
I've been on about 4 or 5 different types of sleeping pills and none of them help. That's how bad the nightmares are. I prefer not to sleep and not dream about it than sleep and just see the picture in my head.
Hey, Roger, the 10, passing 11. Keep going,
Everybody's like, oh, you're going to the Korengal? Oh, and they feel sorry for you. Deadliest place on earth, the Korengal Valley.
We're not ready for this.
I'm thinking, what are we doing?
First friend I lost was Restrepo.
Where Restrepo died, we shot off flares.
In the middle of the night, we put up a fire base. They realized once they could not knock off OP Restrepo, we had the upper hand.
Hey babe, I miss ya.
It takes a little bit out of you every time you see one of your boys get hurt. It's really like a big family.
I want you guys to mourn, and then I want you guys to get over it and do your jobs.
2 months and counting down.
I just don't like the way it is. I don't like how it feels right now.
I kill a bunch of bad guys. In the same instance, I'm killing 5 locals. I need to know better so that I'm not killing these people.
If you noticed, all right, basically that's where Bergdahl was. Very small unit, platoon, 42 guys or so. At the very end, if you noticed, the foolishness of the captain in the, I've seen the whole video. By the way, the young man that started it, Restrepo, Juan Restrepo was a medic. He was shot through the neck and killed, and that's why they named the fire base or the outpost Restrepo. But you can see that's the kind of stuff that Bergdahl's men were up against. Now, I don't know, there's been 75,000 to 500,000 of our men have gone through Iraq and Afghanistan when you add in, out replacements and everything else. We got one guy who gave himself up. Now, look, the key to this isn't Bergdahl. In my opinion, he's like the pimple on a teenager's butt. He's no big deal. What Obama has done is absolutely foolish and stupid, but that's not the point. But the point is, they put that outpost out there. They got the captain. The captain's bringing in, at the very end of the video, they bring in the fathers of the Taliban. They bring in the elders. They're all 100% Taliban. And if you look at the whole video, which is online for free, it's very professional, very well done, put together by National Geographic. The captain and the colonel are talking and working with the Taliban and virtually giving away all their secrets stupidly, politically correctly, which is what General McChrystal and Petraeus and Martin Boo Boo Dempsey in charge of the army now, what they're all doing, because they think they can work with Islam because they've been lied to, politically correct. They believe they can do Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood. My own son was blown up by a suicide bomber under that philosophy that if we're just nice to these folks, they'll be nice to us. Well, if you read Genesis 16, 11, and 12, you will see the father of Islam, Ishmael, in Genesis 16, verse 11 and 12. Go look it up. If you don't have a Bible, type in Bible online. Genesis 16, 11, and 12. And it talks about Islam. It talks about Ishmael. It talks about Abraham's son who was cut out of the promise. Going back to Genesis 3:15, the seed of the promise, the seed of the serpent. The seed of the promise, Jesus would crush the head of the seed of the serpent, and that would be those who follow. What did Muhammad do? So, having been actively involved in cell warfare, guerrilla warfare in Vietnam, I understand cell warfare, surrounded by the North Vietnamese army. I understand you don't go out and try to negotiate with people who are going to that night attack and kill you. Today, we revere World War II and all of the men who fought World War II. I love them. Two of my uncles, great, wonderful men. My dad was in boot camp when they stopped World War II. Great men. The men of World War II who ended up being generals would never make it beyond major today. Patton, Eisenhower, MacArthur, never. They'd be relieved of duty. On the other hand, Martin Boo Boo Dempsey in charge of the United States Army, four-star general, McChrystal, Petraeus, all these guys, they're all politically correct. Not one of them understands Islam. Not one of them understands that Islam has been at war against everyone for 1,400 years. Anybody who refers to it as the war on terrorism does not understand. Flip it. It is not the war on terrorism. It is Islam's war on us, and they consider us the terrorists. Do you understand? In Islam, the kafir, the infidel, which you and I are, Bergdahl and his daddy are not. When he said those words in Arabic, I knew exactly he had converted to Islam and was supporting the Taliban. It's not that hard. I still think it should go to a court and a trial. Of course, everybody is due their day in court. It's the privileges and immunities of being a citizen, thank God, in the United States. But on the other hand, I hope to heaven that the generals and the admirals and the civilian leaders don't squash the testimony of these young men who know the truth. I've known about this guy for 5 years. Let's get to Islam and watch Islam. What did Muhammad do? What is Islam? What did Muhammad do? What will a Muslim do? Eventually, if you try to discuss and dialogue the Quran, as I have done hundreds of times with hundreds of Muslims, once you start asking questions, well, why did Muhammad have sex with a 6-year-old girl? Why did Muhammad have sex with a dead woman in an open grave? Why did Muhammad murder an 80-year-old woman because she had embarrassed him? He had 2 camels tied to her arms and legs, drove them in opposite direction, and quartered her. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look at how women fare under Islam. Clip number 3, Talatha, clip number 3.
Annie Walker rants against putting Afghanistan girls in schools. The Taliban is still a murderous force to reckon with in Afghanistan. They will eventually retake the puppet country, but that is a different story. The American Humanitarian Complex sends NGOs to Afghanistan that encourage schooling for female children. They establish the social infrastructure to promote education for Muslim females in a warlord collapsed state. The Muslims do not want their women educated, a cultural imperative enforced by murder. The NGOs then create a blacklist for the Taliban. This list contains all the names of the females going to school despite the injunction against eating from the tree of forbidden knowledge. The school roster is a hit list. The humanitarians furnish the hit list to the Taliban. The Taliban murder the girls. School is deadly. So why would the self-righteous human rights army lead the poor Muslim girls to their death? I suppose it is because they are unwise. Do not support sending poor Muslim girls into harm's way. Do not support sending poor girls to school. They will only be killed. The NGOs are at it again, killing the innocent.
Go ahead. Now what's going on? The NGOs from the United Nations and the non-governmental organizations are coming into Afghanistan, and good-hearted people. There's a very sweet lady from the University of Washington Huskies who went over to Afghanistan. She's mega rich, and she was putting together a school for 5,000 little girls. Now what's going to happen is soon, it doesn't matter. We're going to leave Afghanistan like we left Iraq. Why? I opposed the long-term war in Iraq and Afghanistan as former president of the United States Marine Corps Reserve Officers Association, working with colonels and generals. They thought that I was a coward because I said, look, when there's a change of guard through the politicians, we're going to leave Iraq and Afghanistan. And as soon as we do, any Afghani or Iraqi who helped us is going to be murdered. That's already happening. The Christians have pretty much been wiped out of Iraq. It's horrible. I know all about it. And so now you have these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, like this sweet lady from the University of Washington goes over there and throws in millions of dollars to put together this school, and other well-meaning people not understanding under Islam, what did Muhammad do? Girls aren't allowed to go to school. They'll be killed. And that's what they're talking about. The NGOs put together lists of the little girls that went to the school, and when we leave, those little girls are all going to be murdered. It's Islam. What did Muhammad do? Why is it so hard for the people in the CIA? The leader of the CIA, John Brennan, is a buffoon, may have converted to Islam. I've showed clips of the guy. He thinks Islam is the greatest thing in the world. The FBI has been infiltrated by the Muslim Brotherhood. Homeland Security has a number of Muslim Brotherhood on their staff. The Pentagon has got Muslim Brotherhood all over the place, in the Pentagon and out in the field. These people threw money. The death knell of every republic is foreign money. In the English Civil War, Cromwell decapitated King Charles I after due process, after a trial in Parliament, and they proved that he was getting money from the French, foreign money, and we know the death knell of every republic is foreign money. The Qatar, Saudi Arabia are so powerful. In fact, it was Qatar, which is the epicenter of taking all of the funds raised throughout the body of believers, the Ummah, in the whole world. All of the cash and all the money orders come back to Qatar and the Sinai Peninsula, and then that money is sorted back out and paid to the Taliban, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines, the Mujahideen, let's see, Al-Shabaab. The list goes on and on and on. It's real simple. Why call them different names? Just call them what they are, Muslims. What do they have in common? Quran. Well, how do they make their ethical decisions? Axiology, the science of ethics. How do they determine, if you get a hammer, are you going to use the hammer to build a house to take care of people, or are you going to take the hammer to crush somebody's skull? What did Muhammad do? He would crush somebody's skull. That's Islam. It's the DNA of Islam is violence. So in Qatar, who's the guys that brokered the release of the Taliban and Bergdahl, those guys are all terrorists. If you don't understand that, keep watching the show. Proof, evidence, and facts. Proof, evidence, and facts. Okay. Clip number 4. Arbaugh. Clip number 4.
Hi.
See you again. Hello. Good, good. How are you?
My brother, they are telling what's happening. They say, you don't need any photos. They go to the photo shop and say, I need 2 photos.
I'm just shaking my head. I can't stand, I show that. I absolutely can't stand. You got these naive soldiers walking up there. Oh, let's go have a party with these folks in Afghanistan. And they're going to see how wonderful and nice. Notice, not one of them had a gun. Are you kidding me? It's this concept. And this goes back to the Bible, the prophecy in the Bible. Just look at it. Genesis 16, 11, and 12. Ishmael, the father of Islam. Ishmael is a wild man, a donkey of a man, an insane man, his hand against everyone. He is at war against everyone, and everyone is at war against him. 1,400 years of Islam. I get a kick out of some of our politicians who said, when we started supporting Israel, then the Muslims got angry and started doing retribution against us. No. No, no. In fact, 1,400 years ago, everybody who was not Muslim, they started attacking. And as I've said on some of the shows, now I have a great book on why we had to dump the Articles of Confederation and implement the Constitution, which wrote in a navy to protect our ships in the Mediterranean, which was the Marine Corps hymn came from that. And what was happening on July 4th, 1776, when America became a nation, the Mediterranean Muslim pirates began to attack the American ships over there because the British were no longer protecting our ships. And this went on for a long time. 1805, Presley O'Bannon, a couple of Marines, Navy went over there and whooped the bad guys. But I think it was all the way until about 1820 or 1830. I think it was John Adams. I couldn't swear to it. And they not only did they stop paying retribution and bribes to the Muslim pirates in the Mediterranean, which only encouraged them. They would catch the ship, hold the sailors and the Marines for a while. They'd get the money. They'd release the sailors and the Marines in the ship. They'd go back out, recapture the same ship, the same Marines, the same sailors, and do it all over again. They were bankrupting the United States under the Articles of Confederation because we didn't have a Navy that could project our strength out our Anglo-American common law to protect our ships that were trading in the Mediterranean. Okay, let's see some more about the Afghani. Now you saw these very nice, well-meaning soldiers going out there thinking that, okay, if we're nice to these guys in a school or hospital or whatever, then the Taliban will be nice to us. No, what's going to happen, like that clip in the NGO, as soon as we leave, the Taliban's going to come in and rape and murder. Before they kill those women, they're going to rape them. That's what Mohammed did. What did Mohammed do? Times 5 times. It's really simple. Number 5, Hamza.
خاطر د ناروان دی د حکومت د لاسو د چلو د وزارت ولاسه دولت زما دغه ځای خلاص زه د باندې خواري پر ما راغلي په اور یې سوی یم په توپنچې یې ویشتلی یم په تیشې یې په پښې ویلی یم سر مې راته سوی والله زوره کوي په زړه مو تاسو څه یې یا توپک لري توپنچه لري سره خپله پلار مخامخ نه د ډاکټر مخامخ څه بالميز هون غير ملاوت سقوط الملل غير ملاوت
udah dipersyapahkan ini.
So again, and I'm going to read right from the Quran, where you are a man, you're supposed to beat the hell out of your wife if she cannot have sex, won't have sex. I'm going to read it in a minute. Again, Bergdahl, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. The first 9 chapters of the Quran begins with, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. There's a reason he wears the beard he does. There's a reason I have a giant mustache, because in Islam, for men with a giant mustache, that's considered power. So, because I used to go out to the mosques a lot, I grew up big mustache. In fact, they had some kind of a saying that the mustache is so big and the man is so powerful, an eagle can land on both sides of his mustache and perch. Okay, from the Quran. Chapter 4, verse 34, Surah 4:34. It's on a line. It's online. You can go read it. They got it in English. They got it in Arabic. As to those women on whose part ye feared disloyalty and ill conduct, admonish them, refuse to share their beds, and then beat the hell out of them. The word that's used to beat them is to pummel, like in a football game, to smash, cage fighting, beat them up. You saw the pictures right there in the clips. That's what they do. Just go in on your computer and type violence against women in Islam and look at the pictures. Now, they lie in the Quran. They say beat them lightly. Some of them say use a toothpick or a Q-tip to hit them. Really? You think they used a Q-tip or a toothpick against those poor girls that were beaten there? Okay, so Surah 4:34. All right, let's watch a honeymoon with an 8-year-old girl. What did Muhammad do? Let's watch a honeymoon, Islamic honeymoon, clip number 8.
Based on the online news report published on September 9, 2013, 10:01 Greenwich Mean Time at Wabawaba.com, 8-year-old Yemeni child dies at hands of 40-year-old husband on wedding night. Al-Nahar, Lebanon, has reported that an 8-year-old child bride died in Yemen on her wedding night, after suffering internal injuries due to sexual trauma. Human rights organizations are calling for the arrest of her husband, who was 5 times her age. The death occurred in the tribal area of Hard in northwestern Yemen, which borders Saudi Arabia. This brings even more attention to the already existing issue of forced child marriages in the Middle Eastern region. It is reported that over a quarter of Yemen's young girls are married before the age of 15. Not only do they lose access to health and education, these child brides are commonly subjected to physical, emotional and sexual violence in their forced marriage. One of the main issues is that there is currently no consistent established definition of a child that has been agreed upon worldwide. This leaves various
Under Islam, under Ayatollah Khomeini, who's an expert on Islamic Sharia law, the little green book, which is online too. You can type in Khomeini, the little green book, PDF. It comes right up. It's about 70 pages long. It is bizarre. It is disgusting, violent. It is crazy. It is vile perversion, as the police chief said, but refuses to say that 100% of the men doing this in the UK believe in one book. They believe in one book, the Quran. Gee, who would that be? Now, what also happens, now if they're willing to beat their women, all right, so we all know, I've been married 43 years, we all know that from time to time, men and women are sick, we get ill, we have different biology, you know, and sometimes the girls just, you know, they're sick. And praise God, under Christianity, you know what I do? I help my wife. I take care of my wife. All my friends, macho guys, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, macho guys, you know what we do? We used to be killers, but we are lovers. We take care of our wives. When my wife gets sick, she doesn't even have to ask me for help. All of my friends that I know, in fact, if I knew a man and he was not kind and polite to his wife, he wouldn't be my friend. It's simple. But under Islam, it's just, well, here, you watch, clip number 11. And we'll go on to clip number 12. Clip number 12.
This Afghan woman is in hospital with serious burns, and they're self-inflicted. She's one of a growing number of women and young girls who deliberately set fire to themselves in order to escape a life of domestic torture and abuse.
I burnt myself because my in-laws were torturing me. They were beating me all the time. I did not have any other choice but to burn myself. I was 10 years old when I got married.
Suicide attempts are common in Western Herat, where many women are forced into marriage at a young age. Many suffer abuse from their husbands and in-laws.
I was 7 years old when I got married. I did not have kids till the age of 12. I became a mother of 4 kids. My husband is a drug user. I asked him to stop using drugs many times, but he wouldn't stop. I warned him that I would have no choice but to kill myself if he didn't quit using drugs. He couldn't do it, and that's why I burnt myself.
This hospital only treats self-burning patients.
We've had 9 cases of self-burning at our hospital. One of them is a man and 8 are women. Unfortunately, 3 of the women died.
Under the Taliban, women weren't allowed to work or get an education. But even now, 8 years after they were overthrown, there's evidence their suffering continues. Women's rights groups say domestic violence and discrimination is common, and women usually have no access to the justice system. Divorce is rarely an option in a country where about 80%...
And they have no access to the judicial system? Of course not. It's Islam. It's Sharia. All a husband has to do, he can marry 4 babes at one time, and if he wants a divorce, he just says divorce, divorce, divorce 3 times. The woman is divorced. She loses all the kids, all the property. He throws her ass out of there. I know it's a Christian station. I know I'm being brutal, but listen, some things are beyond good manners. This stuff is going to hit the United States, Canada, like it's hitting Western Europe already. It is dangerous. There's no point. All this stuff about the Fed, interest rates, putting your kids through college and all that stuff, very soon, the Muslims are 1% right now in America, 3.2 million Muslim Brotherhood, and growing rapidly through conversion. Ohio is having a heck of a time with the people, Bergdahl, converting over to the belief of the Taliban and whatnot. The stuff is growing rapidly. The reason I'm doing this, and thank God Joseph Nasrallah allows me to do this, and we're going on Dish TV very soon, thank God, that we'll be able to get the truth out to the Americans, is so that we can protect not only our children, but our grandchildren and theirs. We all know about the 72 virgins. Quran 56, 22 through 36, it says, and there will be houris, which is the word we get whore from, fair females with wide, lovely eyes as wives for the pious, like unto preserved pearls, and made them virgins. And by the way, under Islam, no black chicks, no brown chicks, no yellow chicks, no red chicks, only white chicks. And we've shown that clip here too. That in heaven, they only allow the white girls to do it. Very racist religion. However, it's also boys too. In Quran 76:19, and around about them, the houris, the perpetual white virgin girls, will serve boys of everlasting youth. If you see them, you would think them scattered pearls, which is clip number 13. Clip number 13.
A young boy dances, dressed in women's clothing, his face lathered in makeup. He is known as Bacha Birish, or boy without a beard, performing for a crowd of Afghan men, a custom known as Bacha Bozi, or boy play. He has bells on his feet, but they might as well be chains, because Bacha Bozi is more than dancing. The boys are lured or snatched from their families and forced to become sex slaves by powerful men. CNN obtained this video from a pimp who introduced us to two dancers who are now adults. Farad and Jamil didn't want their faces shown.
What did Mohammed do? Now, we have evidence that he was a flaming child molester, pedophile, and homosexual. We have that, and I've showed that. I carry that around with me. I generally don't show it, and the reason is it's so explosive that people refuse to accept it. So, as sadly, I've already experienced it. I've been face to face with a guy who's dressed like Osama bin Laden scores of times, if not over 100 times. I've had multiple death threats. The FBI placed me under protection. I've had all this stuff. I know Islam. I work with these wonderful people here at the studio who have all suffered it. We all know it. My son has been to Bosnia, Afghanistan twice, Iraq, blown up by a suicide bomber, and shot up as when he was a medic helping the Iraqis. The Taliban or the Al-Qaeda came in and tried to kill him. Thank God he survived. Okay, clip number 14.
For every opinion or belief someone may hold, there will be another party who just as strongly oppose that idea. Both sides usually claim to sit with the best arguments, the real facts, and the correct worldview, and ironically, both sides regard the other as being indoctrinated, blind to the obvious and outright stupid. Most people only expose themselves to information that matches their own worldview. It is uncomfortable to do otherwise. Still, we would like to give you some surprising information about Islam. We also urge you to look further than only mainstream media, and if you can find the time for it, read the Quran yourself. To get you started, we'd like to present you 3 things you probably did not know about Islam. 1. Islam has not been hijacked. That Islam has been hijacked is what non-Muslims naturally assume, because they assume all religions are the same. The reason non-Muslims are so easily confused is that most of us don't realize the difference between the Quran and every other religious book we are familiar with. The Christian Bible is a collection of writings from various authors, written sometimes hundreds of years apart, with parables, advice and dreams, all collected together into one book. Same with the Jewish Torah. Even those of us in the West, who are neither Christians nor Jews, are still familiar enough with these religions to know this much, and therefore we assume the same is true for the Quran. But the Quran is only one book written by one man in his own lifetime. It is meant to be taken literally, and it is not full of symbolism or vague analogies. It is mostly direct commands. Of course, the Quran contains contradictory statements just like other religious books, but the Quran itself provides the reader with a way to know what to do with the contradictions. It's explained in the Quran that if you have two passages that contradict each other, the one written later supersedes the one written earlier. Most Westerners are unaware that the peaceful, tolerant passages were written early in Muhammad's prophetic career. According to the Quran, those passages have been abrogated by later, more violent and less tolerant passages. So, when most Westerners hear jihadists quoting violent passages from the Quran, and then peaceful Muslims quoting peaceful passages, they interpret that the way they would if someone was quoting the Bible or the Torah. They think to themselves, oh, there must be many different and contradictory passages, like there are in other religious books, so Muslims can pick and choose what they like and justify whatever actions they want to take. But the Quran is nothing like that. There is no picking and choosing. It says very explicitly and in no uncertain terms that a Muslim must not alter or ignore any part of its very clear and direct message, or they will burn in a fiery torment forever. Two. Striving to institute worldwide Sharia law is a religious duty. Many people don't realize how politically oriented Islam is at its core. In fact, Islam is less of a religion than it is a religious ideology. It includes a mandatory and highly specific legal and political plan for the whole society, Sharia. There is no separation between the religious and the political in Islam. Rather, Islam and Sharia constitute a totalitarian means of ordering society at every level, including ritual worship, transactions and contracts, morals and manners, beliefs and punishments. In the Quran, Allah makes it clear that man-made governments, such as a democracy, and free speech, such as criticizing the Quran, are abominations and must be eliminated. The modern expression creeping Sharia is used to describe the slow, deliberate and methodical advance of Islamic law in non-Muslim countries. Official Sharia courts already operate in the UK, handling cases ranging from divorce and financial disputes to domestic violence. Attempts to introduce Sharia in the legal system in Germany, Sweden and other European countries are ongoing. While Sharia already has a foot in our door in the matter of minor disputes like inheritance and domestic violence, it should concern you that Sharia commands that drinkers and gamblers should be whipped, allows husbands to hit their wives, allows an injured plaintiff to exact legal revenge, literally an eye for an eye, commands that a thief must have a hand cut off, commands that homosexuals must be executed, orders unmarried fornicators to be whipped and adulterers to be stoned to death, orders death for both Muslim and non-Muslim critics of Muhammad, the Quran and even Sharia itself, orders apostates to be killed, commands offensive, aggressive and unjust jihad. As written in the Quran, Sharia is the law of Allah. Any other form of government is a sin. It is the duty of every Muslim to keep striving until all governments have been converted to Sharia law. Three.
I had to cut there. I want to show this last clip because it's not just Obama. It is George W. Bush, too. Got us into huge trouble. And I want to say that while I opposed the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, it was for one specific reason. I said, if you follow Romans 13:4 to go in with vengeance, where in Romans 13:4, when you read it, God grants and delegates authority to the civil magistrate as a revenger to execute wrath against those who do evil. In fact, the Battle Hymn of the Republic is based on that. And I told the leaders of the Marine Corps, if you go in there to execute wrath, to teach them a lesson so they will not strike us again, then I'm for it. But if they're going in there for nations building, I'm totally against it. And my thoughts, I believe, have been proved 100%. The last clip we'll show for tonight, about 30 seconds long, clip number 16.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's good to be with you again.
God bless you.
And it is my honor to visit the Islamic Center of Washington once again. For half a century, this beautiful mosque has served as a place of worship for Muslims and has helped to advance understanding between people of different faiths. Millions of our fellow Americans practice the Muslim faith. They lead lives of honesty and justice and compassion. I'm pleased to join you today in the celebration of Eid, the culmination of the holy month of Ramadan. I appreciate so very much Dr. Coach, and I want to thank the other distinguished imams from the Washington, D.C. area. Thank you all for being here, and I enjoyed our visit.
That's a Muslim Brotherhood mosque. 100% of the people in that mosque that he's talking to are Muslim Brotherhood, Ikhwan Muslimin. Those are the characters that fly airplanes in the World Trade Center. Those are the guys that do the Boston Marathon bombing. Those are the guys of the Boko Haram. Those are the guys of the Taliban. Those are the guys of Al-Qaeda. Do I have the facts, evidence, and proof on this? Hell yes, I do. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been so far infiltrated, it is hard to believe. I've been doing this for years and years and years. I've used all my skills as a Marine Corps officer and an expert and specialist in cell and guerrilla warfare. And I hate to say it, but soon, our daughters and our sons are going to go through the hell of those clips I showed. This will be uploaded to YouTube in a few days. We will be going on DirecTV very shortly. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back next Thursday, and to each of you, adieu.
في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح، أصل المسيح